Hi there and welcome back. I just thought that this week I'd cover a topic that I've seen aired on Facebook and regarding toes and the placement of toes on heavily muffed breeds of pigeons. Now, it's one of them grey areas and something that we all talk about but never discuss. We look at our toes and our pigeons quite regularly, and the more heavily muffed varieties of trumpeters always do tend to have slight toe problems. A very slight curvature of the toe, although not ideal, would be accepted. Obvious crooked bending of the toes. So if you've got a toe that's slightly bent, fair enough, but you've got toes that's bending around like this or bending on this degree, this is not acceptable. This is a fault and it should be deemed so. Now, nobody, doesn't matter what breed of muffed trumpeter you breed, should be advocating the breeding of birds with deformities or deformed toes. I've just, honest to God, I've thought myself, where's this coming from? Like, absolute craziness. A lot of parts of the standard are very, very cast in stone and we understand them very easily, and feet is one of them greyish areas. It's not a major disqualification or a serious fault, but when it covers toes, it just says rolled toes or bumblefoot. Now, rolled toes is a disqualification, so you could get some judges who would see these slight bent toes as being a disqualification. Now that would be wrong in itself as well. A bird shouldn't be disqualified just because it's got a small defect, i.e. bent toe. Remember, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So advocating them to be culls just because they've got bent toes is also ludicrously madness and should not be tolerated either. Like, there's a lot of faults in pigeons, in all breeds of pigeons, that get ignored on a daily basis and judged as being fantastic, yet they have massive or serious faults that in other breeds that wouldn't be tolerated. So it may not be tolerated in one breed, but that's not to say that isn't tolerated in another breed. So don't judge all pigeons of the same. I'm a little bit on the fence with this one, but I thought it definitely need airing because, as we already know, there's a lot of people out there who think they know what they're talking about, but they don't. And there's other people out there who don't know what they're talking about but are interested in learning. Now, if these people are listening to people that I've just mentioned earlier, this is a big problem, right? So, right, this is what I've just been discussing earlier on. Now, the problem with muffed breeds of pigeons, the bigger and heavily feathered the muffs are, the more issues we have with feet. And what I wonder with my youngsters here, some different stage youngsters. I want to start off with this red now. This red is not going to be a heavily muffed variety of trumpeter. Now this goes for all breeds of trumpeters, and crooked foots and bendy toes are quite prevalent in muffed varieties of trumpeters, especially Bocaras and especially English trumpeters. So if you look at this youngster's feet, they're perfectly normal. The toes at the back, both the front toes and the three toes equal length. There's no creasing, no crooks, no bending or anything like that. So this is perfectly normal. Now when you turn a youngster over and it crooks its toe like that, don't naturally assume that that's a bent back toe. Pigeons perchers, they naturally would perch. They would naturally do this with a claw. That's natural. What would be a problem would be if the toe was stuck over like this. Now you do see this quite regular. That would be like a slipped claw. That would be a problem. Right, so we'll just forget about that red. And these are two youngsters. These are two nestmates. Now, both these are quite heavily footed. Now, toes at the back. This is going to have a huge spread of muffs. The natural curve of the feathers is already there. The toes are not bent. Now, don't get me wrong, I want the feathers on the feet to be round. Crooked toes come with it, but it's not something that I'm going to accept. The standard states that crooked toes is a fault, so don't pass it off as not being a fault, because it is a fault. So the three toes here are all normal. The gaps between the webbing's normal. There's no crook on the back toes thing. As you'll notice again, this one's clawing it back over again. That's just a natural instinct. Take no notice of that. Right, so this, as you can see, it's don't get me wrong, it's not going to be a huge muff pigeon, but it's going to be a decent muff pigeon. Now this is its nestmate. Now as you can see, its nestmate is going to have humongous muffs. Now this is where we start to get the issues. So now we have a slight curve in the toe. This one's going to be a bit extra webbing. This one's got a curve, so the curve's there. So the problems are now starting there. Now, we know this is a fault. Now, to what degree do we accept it? The slight curve, do we accept a slight curve? Ideally, no. We want the toes to be straight like every other thing that I've just been showing you. Foot problems are a massive problem. When you get them in your straight, to get them out takes decades. Not years, it takes decades. These are two of the youngsters. See him again. Now, this one, I suspect, will have curved toes. And the reason why this curved toe comes in is the distance between the elbow and the football of the joint. This is the this distance here. When this distance gets shorter, this is when you get problems with the back toes. These are although these are in the same nest, these are from different pairs. As you can see, the distance between there and there. Now, if we compare it by this one here, if you look at the distance from there to there, from there to there, this is the problem. This youngster will probably be a problem walker. I'm not saying it would be massively problemed. This youngster will not. This is not bred to the standard. This is bred to the standard. Right, I'm going to show you one more thing before I go on. I'm going to bring her in, and this will complete what we've just been talking about. Right, so I'm going to bring this hen in. Now, I've spoke about this hen on many occasions before. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this De Roy hen, forget about her head, because her head needs a lot of work, but her chest, body, wings, tail and muffs are perfect. They are 100% towards what the standard states. Now her muffs, I don't know if you can see, I know they cut, but her standard, the muffs, her feet, her muffs fit the standard. The standard states that the muffs should start out smaller from the front and progressively get longer and longer and longer around here. Now, I've done a video on her in full muff, so you can go and have a look at that. So her muffs, her feet, her foot feathering are smaller at the front, and then they progressively get longer and longer and longer. Now, I know how they cut, so you just got to visualise it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin her over, and we're going to look at her foot. Now, this foot is perfect as the standard states. Now, as you can see, her toes are perfectly normal. So the one at the back, this one spread, it's slightly, so that foot is absolutely perfect. Now this side, she has a slight bend, not too much, not, like you say, she's not all the way around, and there is a slight little bit of, and there is a slight little bit of webbing. But the toes, there's a little bit of an angle to them, but not much. So although these are problems with the breed, and I know we've talked about them, but it's something that you will always have in heavily muffed breeds. Now the old saying is, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't accept toe faults, but we tolerate them. Now, the top 5% birds in the world will more or less, when we get towards the end of the standard, will probably have toe problems. And yeah, it'll be something that we have to put up with, have to deal with, or whatever. But to say that you would cull a bird because it has a bad toe is really not what it's called for. Right, so that's it. I hope we just cleared something up about feet. I'll put this back now because she's on eggs. I just thought I'd use this Marlene Brower statue as a guide or as an indication. We don't have a standard model of the IBTC, the Curtis statues. They're in America, so we haven't got access to them. But this clearly shows the feathering, small at the front, progressively getting longer and longer, 3 layers, and this is what we want. So we're not looking for the curvature of toes to achieve this look. We're looking for the curvature of feathers, or the illusion of it. And the illusion is made up of smaller feathers which gradually get longer. So if we have smaller feathers at the front which progressively get longer and longer and longer at the back, that will give us the desired circle that we are looking for. On no accounts at any time ever that we should be advocating the bending of toes to achieve this look. This is just something that needs nipping now in the bud. Like, it's not correct. Bent toes is a fault. Simple as that. Doesn't matter which way you look at it. You can butter it up any which way you want, but bent toes is a fault. Right, well, I hope that covered that and cleaned all that grey area up for some. Small details are always going to be an issue with a breed. I mean, let's face it, I mean, this is the most mutated breed of fancy pigeon on the planet. So if you stay around to the end, I hope you've learned something from this. I hope you picked up even one little bit of thing. But remember, this isn't a fault that's specific to Pucaras. This is a fault that is in all muff breeds of pigeons. And the more heavily muff breeds, the more you will encounter these problems. Right, until next time, take care. Thanks for staying around to the end. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching my videos. And thanks until next time. Take care. Bye.